Okay, hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be. We are back with another Asterix story. We are heading into the first ever book today that was not written by one of the original creators of Asterix, who Rennie Goscinny or Albert Uderzo had a hand in this one. So I guess, as I said on Twitter earlier, we'll take the high road, you take the low road. We'll be in Scotland before. Yeah, sorry, I had to. So,
hey, listen, it's not as bad as ringing the chat, so don't worry about it.
Okay, so
Speaking of, please excuse me, I'm going to throttle my spouse.
Okay.
For making me giggle during the intro.
Yeah, I like that. I will bring that up for you. I like that little that is an Asterix worthy pun.
That is very Asterix worthy. Well done, Ring.
Yeah. Okay. First things first. Before we jump into this, what are we drinking?
I am on. I don't know if it's an Aldi own brand or if it's just a brand Aldi carries, but Taurus Cloudy Sweet Apple Cider.
Okay, nice. I've got a little selection of Belgian beers on me. I got this one here. Now, I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of this, and I'm sure Hopswatch will sooner correct me on this. But so I see he's in the chat. But I have this one is a Limbris White. It's got this one.
Is it German? Because if it's
Belgian.
German, it's bitter, isn't it?
They're all Belgian. It's just a white beer, or so.
I don't know what language.
So we're going to give this a try. I've got a little selection of it's quite a nice little pale.
You want to be careful with the pale ones, they look weak, but then they're the ones that take you out of the knees.
See, this is like the closest, this is like a 5% beer. So it's like most of the rest of these, I've got a triple here for a bit later as well, and that's going to be a bit stronger. So
go on, let's see what you think of it.
Oh, that's rather nice.
There you go.
I don't know if this is like the Brussels champagne type stuff that Hops talks about, but it is very it's got that sort of champagne lager vibe about it. Rather nice.
I'll agree with that.
So Asterix and the Picts, what do you reckon to this one?
Oh, it's all right. It's nothing groundbreaking, which is probably good after the last few we've had. It's a very typical going back to form for Asterix book. Sorry, just distracted by mention of Iron Brew in the chat there. Because I haven't had Iron Brew in a long time and I need Iron Brew. Anyway, yeah, this book, it's back to form. It's not. They're playing it safe quite clearly, which I don't blame them. That it's the first book that they're taking over in something that's been established over half a century at this point. They're not going to be doing anything big and out there. But it's nice. And I do have to say, on the back of some of the more recent Uderzo ones, some of the later Uderzo ones, it is a refreshing return to form and a distinct lack of malice, which is always, nice.
Yeah, I say this. I would say this one a bit of a palate cleanser after some of the ones we've done. But as I said, nothing. Yeah, this isn't. You're not going to say this is one of the all-time great Asterix books. There's no way you're going to say that.
No, it's run of the mill. It's Goscinny on an off day.
It's the sort of run of the mill thing where they go to another country kind of thing, which is a bit of a, I suppose it's one of the sort of regular formulas for the Asterix books. It's there are sort of set little formulas, aren't there? There's the ones where they go abroad to another place, or they it's some little latest scheme that the Caesars come up with to mess with the village. It's that kind of thing. That it's got those. It's got this little tropes, hasn't it, Asterix?
Yeah. And they have obviously, and you can tell in some points, gone out of their way to soften some of the sarcasm in this that was present previously.
Yeah.
Which there's an argument to be made that maybe they went too far in the opposite direction and softened it a bit much. But there's at least one joke in there that I looked at and went, hang on, that made it into a kid's book. So, yeah.
Okay. Shall I bring it up then?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the cover of this. Obelix, I'm going to say throughout this, he does seem to, he does seem to be quite enthralled with the Highland games, especially the tossing of the caber. We'll get to that in a bit, but he does seem to rather enjoy this.
Yeah. I don't blame him, to be honest. It's quite fun. It's fun to watch at any rate. So we open this book with a couple of notes here. One from Uderzo, sort of passing on the baton, if you like, and one from Goscini's daughter, I presume. Sort of giving her stamp of approval on his behalf.
It was either his daughter or his widow. I'm not sure. I'm assuming
I like to think that my father would be proud of the authors to whom we have entrusted famous little Gaul.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would presume it's his daughter.
That's
so nice touch. And what's this? Yeah, the pages are all different sizes in this scan, so you'll have to excuse.
Oh, you've got the same scan that I've got here, so
yeah, that's why I was zoomed in so far so we could look at this bit. Right, so we're starting off, and immediately we've got our traditional splash page of the village to open up. Nothing groundbreaking, as we said, but nice because there's a little spin on it of it appears to be winter.
Yep.
Which makes some of the jokes a bit more amusing. I like the idea that unhygienics can't even keep fish fresh in the dead of winter.
Yeah, got frozen. He's got a frozen fish stall now.
Yeah, and even they aren't fresh. They are very. I feel like they're very British in the way they're depicted in this first splash page.
Yeah,
like discussing the weather, and it just that this bit here just feels very British.
Well, I think this is a bit of a thing worldwide. I'm sure the older generations and like him say a bit nippy here, geriatrics. Oh, this is not. This is nothing. I've seen worse. Back in my day, it was so.
I'm officially claiming geriatrics for Yorkshire.
Yeah.
With that comment.
Oh, it's funny. This is the this is like the four Yorkshiremen thing of Monty Python, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. That's what's going on there. So, and I love the dating system they're using before vital statistics. This flagged up something that's a little bit different. I feel like if we'd have seen that dating scheme in other books, it would have been 50 BV asterisk and there'd have been a little yellow box in the corner.
Yeah.
Which it's a slight stylistic difference.
I mean, we do get
jumped out at me.
We do see gets one or two of them in this book. I've noticed.
Yeah, we do.
Later,
but I feel like that one was a bit. I don't know. That feels a bit odd the way that one's shown there. Seagulls crash landed on the waves. His wife doting on him. The way she's depicted has changed as well. We should point out as well, this book is specifically set in 50 BC.
Yeah.
So I think someone got a bit confused with the date tropes, because the previous ones were all 45 BC.
Mm.
And I'm wondering if someone got confused and thinks these are supposed to be based before or after the previous ones.
Yeah, I don't know that this is. I mean, one thing I've noticed there doesn't seem to be many callbacks to other books in this particular one, though.
Yeah.
So I've sort of noticed that there's no sort of callbacks to some of the certainly nothing obvious anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it looks like in a way it is, in a certain way, they are making a fresh start, these two.
Yeah, it does look a bit like they may be trying for a bit more realism in some of the artwork with geriatrics. And I think they've taken his wife and they've softened her edges a little bit.
Yeah. And I will say this is all a little early to tell with this stuff, because this is the first of these books. We haven't read any. This is the first we've read. We don't know what it's going to be like going forwards, but I suppose there's some encouraging signs.
Yeah, it's very encouraging. I like the way she's drawn here. I hope it continues, because she's a lot less. In the previous books, the joke was always, it's the hot young woman and the old man, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas this has sort of softened that a bit and made it less dated. Yeah. So I do hope it continues, but we will see.
And so they've come to the thing that the conclusion is it snows too bad they can't really go hunting for boars, so they're going to go looking for oysters instead.
Yeah, because it's a month with an R in it.
Yeah. February even has 2 R's in it, so the world's our oyster.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they find a lot of things that have been washed up on the sea. Roman helmet to Obelix to add to his collection. There's an amphora, which Asterix is not sure if it's Greek or Phoenician. And a block of ice, Obelix points out, but this one's a bit different. We've got a Pict inside, frozen in the ice.
Yeah. I do have to say again, the artwork on this is very fun. Yeah. I think it's just enough. And I do like Dogmatix's reaction to this poor fella in the ice.
Yeah. I will say. I mean, now I will say a little thing where you see the Picts kind of depicted with kilts. I don't think kilts were actually kind of a thing until the 16th century. They may have evolved from they probably evolved from earlier dress, but that's about as far as we can actually date the kilt back to. So
yeah, I know very little about Scottish history, so I'm relying on you for this one. But yeah, I mean, I like it. It's this thing with the blue paint is quite famously. Let's not talk about movies, but it's a nice little nod.
Yeah,
it's a nice little nod.
That woad would have been a thing, obviously. That Celts with Celtic peoples were known for. As I said, I mean, obviously this was released after the movie Braveheart, which is a bit weird because it depicts the Scots still wearing like woad paint, but also kilts. And obviously for anyone who's prizes any degree of historical accuracy in films as a positive thing, Braveheart is the absolute, public enemy #1 in the film, pretty much. So,
yeah. So we've got this here, very specific artwork. Again, Dogmatic still does not like this.
And kilts are, as Hobbes points out, they're a much later invention, as were bagpipes. Scotland was allegedly the last place in Europe where bagpipes were introduced. Yeah, I believe that because I know, and I definitely know. Yeah. I don't know if you know this, Noodle. Hobbes is quite the bagpipe player. I don't know if you know this.
I don't know this.
Yeah, I found this out. I found this out on stream with Hobbes about a week or two ago. He's quite the bagpipe player.
Oh, well, we're going to need a video showcasing that at some point, Hobbes. So let's have a look anyway. So they've brought it back, and they are in the middle of the village, and everyone's fascinated. Geriatrix is not amused down here. He's not pleased. And we've got a few traditional puns straight in there. Caught a nasty cold. Never break a cold chain. What if he reaches meltdown? You know, the usual. Again, as I said, nice return to form. But
yeah, Geriatrix rather initially said at first sight he thought he was a Hibernian, which is obviously Ireland. But he said, look at those strange tattoos on the chest. I love this one, Obelix. Maybe he's a footballer. They do it during the transfer season.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Nice little jab there, I think.
Yeah, there's a nice little pun there as well, yeah.
Yeah, so, and then they're from Caledonia.
Yeah.
A Pict. And more puns. You've picked up a Pict to take him to get to fix his hut. And then this hints straight away. I want to talk about this. Our Caledonian cousins are fierce warriors. Something that becomes immediately apparent in this book is the Picts are very much depicted as kind of Gauls in kilts.
Yeah,
they're very similar characterization.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even sure if Obelix even once says these Picts are crazy.
I don't think he does.
I can't remember it now. Maybe we'll second reading through we'll notice something, but I don't even think we got these Picts are crazy in this.
No, I don't. I don't think we got these Romans are crazy, and there was opportunity for it.
Yeah.
So, and we know that they resist invasion by the Romans.
Yeah.
And then, speaking of Roman invaders, limited numbers here to take a census.
Yeah.
That pun's terrible. It's so bad it's good, but you know.
So yeah, they've got this Roman suddenly turned up to do a census here.
This to me, it feels like the Romans are a bit softened.
Yeah.
This character at least is very softened.
Well, I must admit, I was a bit surprised where it weren't here, because I assumed that this is a little character that's okay, probably a Roman in here to stir up trouble kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it turns out he's not at all. He's just,
Yeah.
He's a bit of an unfortunate soul who's just been sent here to do a job and does not have a lot of fun with it in the end.
Yeah. And it's kind of, I feel like he's a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
But he's definitely again, he's a little bit bland. I understand what they're doing. They've played it safe. But again, it's one of those things. You've got to walk a line with Asterix and Obelix, and I can see what they're trying to do. I appreciate the update in a lot of the artwork for the characters. I appreciate certain things about it, but it seems to have lost a bit of spark, which we'll get into, no doubt, further on. For example, what Roman has ever cared about interrupting traditional ceremonies?
Yeah. But I like the fact that he says this whole thing about, don't worry, this is purely an administrative inquiry. Its sole aim is to slim down the fat cunts among the local. I'll show you as a fact. He thinks Obelix thinks he's insulting him, which he wasn't.
He wasn't. No, he's actually
who said,
just trying to sort out.
Said fat here, you know. Vital statistics is like, come on, Obelix, leave him alone. The guy's just trying to do his job.
Yeah.
And so they kind of just like to go. You can go and do your census, just just do it. Just do it quickly and be discreet. But basically, vital statistics is like, no, they're not going to hammer this guy. He's just a poor soul. He's been sent here to do a job and let him get on with it. So,
a geriatric screaming, we presume, about immigrants. They'll all come in their thousands with blocks of ice, which. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, that's as bad as the political commentary gets in this one, but it is a bit cringe.
Geriatrics does have a little bit of form for this, though, in previous books, and it's like the whole. I've got nothing against. You remember the one? I think it was Caesar's Gift. I've got nothing against foreigners, but these particular foreigners are not from this village.
Yeah,
you know So he's a bit of an old, I don't know, little. Sometimes he's a little bit of an old Alf Garnett type at times.
Yeah, a bit of an Alf Garnett going on, and of course, because this is now becoming a trope of these books, that's getting a little bit irritating. But I can see why they put it in, because again, they're sticking to the format. The ladies are intrigued.
Yeah, they're I mean, no, we wouldn't know anyone in real life, would we, that would get like a bit intrigued by anything Scottish. I don't know if Jen is still in. I don't know if Jen is still in the chat.
Yeah, let's just give Jen a moment with some of the images of this Pict. I think probably disappeared off with a few of these images that are coming up, to be honest. So they've dried him out. They've melted him in front of the fire, and hawthorn, mistletoe, and chamomile oil to stimulate the pulse gently.
So he can't come round too quickly, but he kind of does, and just goes wandering off by himself. And is approached by the Roman here for the census.
Yeah.
So I like this surname, profession, permanent, or temporary resident. And he's just like that. So how do you spell that? And then the next thing is
nose to the grindstone there, lad. I just want to point out his tattoo, because you see it really well shown here.
Yeah.
But this, to me, that looks like it's a depiction of some kind of elephant. If you look at it,
I know what it is.
Almost the Roman descriptions of what elephants might have looked like.
Yeah, but I think it's something else.
Oh.
We'll see in a minute. Something he builds out of snow.
Yeah.
That's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be. But I did just want to point that out, because there is a famous, especially because we're talking about a character who came from sort of an anti-Roman tribe, village, community. There's a couple of famous descriptions of the yes, I'm also leaving it there for Jen's benefit.
Ring ought to be writing Asterix books, all these little puns they keep coming out with here.
Yeah, definitely. There's a great, I'm sure I've mentioned it before, description of a the Romans, when Hannibal came over the mountains with his elephants, of these giant monsters with snakes on their faces. Hence why this jumped out at me in particular. This one here.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't staring. No, I didn't stare very long at all to notice that. I'll leave that to Jen. But yeah, the Picts has escaped. So they're picking up the trail of a Pict is a picky business. Ring. Damn it. Puns.
He's trying to tell his story here as well, but he sees he can't speak. So he's trying to do like hand, trying to tell it with hand signals.
Yeah.
For storms, whirlwinds, mushrooms, far away, somewhere else.
It's like it's a game of charades, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is the thing though with charades. You have to speak the same language in charades for it to work. Because most charades relies on homophones and gestures that sound like the word they made.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it doesn't really.
Obelix thinks he understands it. He thinks a terrible story. He was eating mushrooms at 4 on the dot when a whirlwind hit him right in the stomach.
Of course, Obelix goes for the food answer.
Yeah.
Not to worry, Jen. We've left plenty of time for these images to be on the screen, so when you come back later, you'll be able to get your fill. Not to worry.
Jen's just listening. So am I gonna have to break out the Scottish accent for anything here? Jen is the question. Yeah. The bad Sean Connery impression.
So this little panel here has not aged well. From vital statistics there. But it's a fair point, this the right of asylum. I presume if you're going historically, they could be talking about sort of guest host etiquette.
Yeah.
But it's not particularly aged well, has it? When we're talking about
not overly.
So, and even to the point where his wife's a bit, you and your fine speeches. A little bit of self-awareness there.
But Impedimenta's picked up to actually think she knows what's being. That he's actually trying to tell a tragic love story. Show us what you're hiding in your hand. And turns out Impedimenta is right. He's got a gold ring in his hand there. It's quite clearly a wedding band,
Yeah.
And then he got all the women there. Oh, how sweet! What a real Nordic. And you're going to see this. The men in the village are going to get really, really pettily jealous and insecure of here.
Yeah. So they're taking back to get a fix, and the ladies are now, Impedimenta's making him a cake and fresh fish and tools to cut his chains and all of them. This comment, no cake for vital statistics.
You're overweight. You're not having any cake.
This 3-part panel here is just, this amuses me because she's quite obviously talking about him, but he's so petty, he's not realised.
I love the fact he said, she says, because he's like, why are you paying him so much attention? He said, maybe he reminds me vaguely of someone. What do you mean that Pitt reminds you? He says, he reminds me of a red-headed young warrior long ago who made me dream. Red-headed young warrior, what are you talking about? I don't know. He wasn't so fat then. He clearly doesn't. He clearly is like, hold on, saying he reminds me of you when you were younger. That's kind. So
yeah. And I do like this little comment from the Roman here. So you're pathetic, are you?
Looks like it.
Yeah. And he's obviously he's staring at the ring. Apologies for where it's blurred here. It's how the scan downloaded. It happens every so often. It looks like whoever scanned it, their version probably had water damage or something.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
nerdy. There does seem to be some fat shaming in this. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit of it going on. It's one of those where, yeah, it's fat shaming, but it's kind of in character, and it's if it was a bit more affectionate between them, and I think she is a bit affectionate there, but then got annoyed at his reaction.
Okay.
It's one of those.
Right. That's right. Quickly, beer number 2 here. This one's going to be this one's quite strong. This one's quite strong here. It's a triple Lefort. So this could probably, hopefully, she'll take me through, because this is obviously going to be a very, very strong drop of drink.
And again, Ring, I love you, but you're towing the line. You're cruising.
Ring, I think you should be writing Asterix books.
I feel like Ring's just going to go back, find all their old comments on these streams at some point, put them all in a document, and send them with their CV to the writers of these books.
Yeah, you definitely.
It's one of those, isn't it? So they've got an elixir, and this character, because this character has lost his voice. So come on,
yeah.
Yeah.
What's this? I see now. Now the trouble with this, the way he's speaking here, is this is going to be less Sean Connery and more Rabsy Nesbitt here. Picts away, you're so Wallish.
That sounds more Newcastle than Scotland.
I know, that's the problem. Well, it's the fact that he says why.
Yeah.
It's like that's more like more like Newcastle why, man.
Yeah, Newcastle why.
It's not I can't really do the old Glasgow Rabsy Nesbitt kind of like, which is kind of like borderline incomprehensible. But
yeah,
if like, I'll just say this: there's a Scottish, well-known Scottish football manager, actually a former football player called Kenny Dalglish. If anyone's ever listened to one of his interviews, you understand what I'm on about, with like borderline incomprehensible.
It's horrible, but sometimes you do need subtitles.
Yeah.
Nerdy has a nice compliment for you there.
Yeah, I see.
So after several days of care and nursing, Castaway's condition improves.
Now he starts telling his story with.
Yeah.
Okay. So look what he builds in the snow here.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've just realised what that is. Now looking at it for the second time, this book.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure we will. So I wasn't too far off when I mentioned monsters.
Yeah.
But we'll get there. So he's building. He's trying to show them something.
Let's put it this way. There's a reason I used the thumbnail I used for this stream. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. But by nightfall, no one understands.
I will definitely talk a bit about. We'll definitely talk a little bit more about that stuff when it comes up.
Oh yeah, definitely. So now they've decided they're going to help him return to his village. I like this one from Obelix. Sees him looking up at the stars and says, "Is the land of the Picts as high up as that?"
Yeah,
that's a joke about northernness there, and mountains. And the women are all obviously still cooing and
and the men are like, "We're gonna go. They've had enough of this. We're gonna go complain to the chief about this." And then the poor Roman said, "The guy again, good gentleman, I just want you to help me plumb the depths of your society." Smack.
Poor Roman. Like, he's just there to help them get running water, and they just...
I feel a bit sorry for him. I actually feel a bit sorry for him in this book.
I will point out as well, though, having had a census recently in Britain, it really is irritating, isn't it? It's just a simple thing, but it is way more irritating than it should be.
There's a reason I'm glad it only happens every 10 years.
Yeah, definitely. Although it was easier this year being able to do it online.
Speaking as a postal worker, I can vouch for that.
Yeah. So Vital Statistics trying to say they've got the right of asylum. I don't particularly like this for 2013.
Yeah, Robert, that's true. But as we do know with some of these books, the people that translate this into English do tend to have, because we've found a few very sort of say English-centric jokes in here before.
Yeah, so, there are a couple in here as well, aren't there, that are very...
And I think, I expect there's probably different people who translate this into English or, for an American audience as well. I mean, I'm trying to remember which film it was. I think it may have been the film version called Asterix Conquers America, which is obviously based on the Great Crossing. But you got there's an English translation for the British audience where they have Craig Charles voicing Asterix, and yet in America it's released and they had Henry Winkler, the Fonz, did the voices of Asterix. So
the Fonz as Asterix, wow.
He obviously doesn't do it in that accent, which interesting little bit useless trivia here. Do anyone know whose accent Henry Winkler basically stole for the Fonz?
I wouldn't know exactly. No.
Very famous actor who sort of came around the scene about the same time as Henry Winkler, and they kind of worked on a couple of projects together over the years.
To be fair, I don't know enough about Henry Winkler. I vaguely know about the Fonz. That's about it.
Well, he was in before Happy Days. He was in a film called Lords of Flatbush, where he played a character, I suppose, a little bit like the Fonz, sort of 50s, sort of, greaser type. And one of the other people in that was one Sylvester Stallone.
Of course.
See, it makes sense when you think about it now. Henry Winkler actually admitted, the Fonz's accent was Sylvester Stallone. Basically, he was his impression of Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah.
Hello, Bill.
Yeah. I'm presuming that CA is short for Canada.
Yeah.
Bilingual teaching system makes sense. Yeah. So, if you spot anything, Bill, and we know Hobbs sometimes looks out as well. If you spot anything that's different from the translation you read to what the English version is, do let us know, because we are curious about it, and we do like to discuss it when anyone tells us and it pops up.
Now, I like the fact that they're all gone complaining to the chief here, and he's like saying about, okay, look, we still have a right of asylum, and then all of a sudden, geriatrics comes in. He says, my fever passes. Now I'm dressed like this. It's the latest fashion or what? Look what his wife's made him dress. His wife's made him dress in Highland dress. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he's got and then all of a sudden, so he's got his kilt. He's got his Highland kilt. He's got his sporran on there. Then all of a sudden, like the other women come in with a load of tartan cloth. So boy. Oh, it's like...
Yeah, and now Vital Statistics has had enough.
Yeah, enough's enough now. We got to get rid of this guy.
I like this comment here. In short, how can I put it? His popularity with the village women calls the right of asylum into question. Is that it?
Yeah.
And that's just very...
Yeah, that's a perfect panel there.
Yeah, that is absolutely perfect. And in my head, read that panel again, but read Get a Fix as Alan Rickman.
Yeah.
And it just makes it 100 times funnier. Like, I read that Getavix's voice just for that one panel was Alan Rickman.
Yeah.
So, and now Obelix is calling them. He was showing the Picts Menhirs, and look what he did. And he appears to be carving some kind of map.
Yeah. So it's Northern Caledonia. You see that cross, yeah, and it's then you remember, yeah, and he has to get it in. Yeah, I'll take the I road. Yeah.
I'll let you do the singing.
Yeah, we've already done that joke anyway.
Yeah, so they wait till spring to set sail.
Yeah, and now it's like all the men, you'll see it, all the men in the village, vital statistics, fully automatic. So they're all wearing tartan now.
Yeah.
So they got some. So he sends him off with some more of that elixir for the Pictish friends here, who's still obviously recovering and having the voice issues, and obviously a bit of magic potion for Asterix. Unfortunately, Doggo's got to stay behind on this one.
Yeah.
So he's leaving him in Getafix's care for this. He's
one bone, morning and evening.
Yeah. And I like the vital statistics as I tell you, I look ridiculous dressed as this, like this.
Yeah. Not at all. It's very slimming.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a thing? Is there a thing women have about men in kilts? Can I just ask?
I don't particularly. I mean, it looks smart when it's the full. Sometimes I've known
the full Highland
weddings in the full Highland.
Yeah.
It looks very smart. I presume that, as with any dress or anything, there will be people somewhere that get a thrill from it. I can only speak for myself. I wouldn't dream to speak for all AFAB folk.
Yeah.
Probably better off asking them, to be honest.
I'll just say, I'll tell you off stream, okay? Let's just say that.
Fair enough. Well, I mean,
I've had some personal experience on this front.
Enough said. I like you, Jeff. You're a good friend, but some things I don't need to know.
Some things, yeah. I think enough said.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, you've got me saying not so much, but quite clearly Jen enjoys. So when you ask if women like it, nah, it's a mixed bag. So let's see. Let's have a look. Census maker now, -3 warriors, +1 dog. Didn't he not count the dog before? Why wouldn't you count the dog before if the dog was there the whole time?
I have no idea. He's not. And of course, I've composed a little Caledonian two-step for their departure, and Cacophonix goes for a swim.
Yeah, because guess who trips him up?
Yeah, what happened? He missed a step again.
Yeah. Obelix is bored on the ship. And he promised to bring Unhygienix's boat back safe and sound. So sail on the horizon. And I'm being very careful how I scroll here because I know there's at least one.
Yeah, obviously we got pirates coming up. I mean, this is a little weird because I think some of the panels here are somewhat important to the story, or it's an important point anyway. It's about to be made.
Yeah, I mean, on this one, if it's all right with you, Jeff, I think there's a good point to be made by showing it that I'd like to discuss.
Yeah, okay.
For a moment.
I'll just say though,
warning for it when it pops up.
I will just say, yeah. I guess I'm just going to put a little trigger warning banner up there, okay, just in case. We don't normally like to show it, these images, but just on for this one we will.
Yeah.
Okay, but so this is just so it's upcoming in a little bit.
Yeah. So we've got our Picts friend is talking and he's telling them his story.
Yeah, he's actually like can properly talk now, and it's understandable.
Yeah,
he's like, I'm talking. He's getting it right about the time when the pirates show up.
Yeah. And we see the reason I'm showing this here because again it's in the background, but also later on as well we see depictions of the pirates this way. But we've got Obelix, and we have the fight with the pirates again. It's around about he's telling his story while fighting the pirates. I will say the fights in this, the fight scenes are a bit chaotic.
So yeah, so he's telling his story, which is that he was he was leading this peaceful life at home, and he fell into an ambush set up by the odious Maccabeus, which sounds like a bit of a Hebrew name to me, but
yeah, the Maccabees.
Yeah. The clan, but they're all Mac somethings here.
Yeah.
And so you get the feeling, you get the bit that there's a bit of clan war going on here, going in there, and he's kidnapped the love of his life, and sort of obviously put him in that situation where he went off frozen in the ice.
Yeah.
So that's a long and short of that.
Yeah. So the fight in the battle, the pirates have been destroyed. The reason I asked if we could show it this time, not just because it's part of the plot, obviously, but because there's a distinct difference in the way it's shown in this book compared to the others. It's still there, the racist imagery is still there, but it's always in the background. It's smaller, it's always it's not, the character doesn't speak, he's not got a panel to himself, it's always as part of something else. And I hope that this is an indication that they're dialing that racism back and that they're looking towards possibly phasing it out.
I'm hoping so. Time will tell. But I mean, this has been probably our biggest complaint with these is the way, in particular, Black people are drawn in these books does not stand up well. And I think I like to hope that it's going to be slowly dialed back. We're being optimistic at this point that although it's still there, it's not as quite as front and center as it's been. So we're trying to be positive that this is going to be gradually phased out now.
I will point out as well, just because you said it, when we see this character Macabre or Maccabee, I suppose, the way he's drawn, given the Hebrew sounding name, is a bit. There's some issues there.
You could read into it, yeah.
You could read into it, but it's a new set of writers, so I am willing to give the benefit of the doubt that they're just drawing a villain.
At the moment, like I don't think like what with Uderzo, we got to a point where we couldn't really be too charitable to the guy much anymore. This is a clean. We're trying to look at this. This is a clean slate with these new guys, and let's try and give them the benefit of the doubt for the time being, and hope that some of the more problematic aspects of this series are going to be phased out.
Yeah.
We
As I said, it's new writers, so I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt. But just to, if anyone does see it and make that connection, just a warning that it could potentially be a possible reading of this. So now we arrive with the Romans, who are actually in Scotland as well.
Yeah. I like that. I mean, this image here, that panel there, I do like. Now, I might be reading this wrong. I'm gonna have to Google this very quickly. But this reminds me. But it reminds me of the place. It reminds me a little bit of Glenfinnan, almost of there's a statue. There's a big statue on a column there of Bonnie Prince Charlie, and it's in a sort of scene where it comes in from a sort of lock there, and I might be reading that completely wrong, and there's probably no reference to it at all, but I am kind of wondering if that was implied here. I think it's difficult to say though from here because it's not quite the same as the statue of.
Because the Glenfinnan monument's on top of a tower as well.
It's on a column. Yeah,
it's on a column. I would say I can see why it would make you think that, looking at the background. It does look like they've landed at Glenfinnan, looking at the landscape of it.
Yeah.
But I would be hard pressed to compare those panels to the Bonnie Prince monument.
Glenfinnan is a lovely little place on the end of Loch Shiel. It's about 15 miles or so from Fort William. It's a lovely place if anyone ever gets a chance to go there. And to be honest, anyone ever gets the chance to go to Scotland who hasn't been, go. Beautiful country.
Just if you're going winter, wrap up warm.
Yeah.
But don't let that stop you. I do like the names of these Romans as well. Back to form with that, fallacious and pretentious.
Yeah.
So, and then asking a shepherd directions.
And I like the fact that you've got these things. They've got road signs here, or pictograms, as we.
Yeah, the pictograms. I do like this. What does that one say over there? Road liable to flooding. Oh, is it safe? Fairly.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Roman in up to his chest, which is just I do like the little smirk on the Scotsman's face expression here.
Yeah.
And the little the dog as well is quite cute. I do have to say I like the dog.
Now I've got to say, now we've got to go to the next panel.
I stopped and stared at this panel for several minutes. I love puffins.
Yeah. But did you like the little pun here right there, the name of the lock?
Yeah, lock and roll. Yeah.
Lock and roll. Yeah. Lock and roll. That's that. I thought that was quite fun. I thought that was quite a bit of fun.
That was nice. I'm sorry, I can't get over the way the puffins are drawn. Those are drawn really well.
See, I was gonna say because we don't get too many of the I think as what Ring called the Uderzo flex type thing in here with the landscapes.
Well, there's no Uderzo, is there?
But no Uderzo. But that's one of the best panels in this book, no doubt.
Definitely. Like, you could happily take, especially the one in the foreground, that image of a puffin and put it in a textbook. Or on the front of a textbook, and it would, everyone would know what they were looking at. But yes, the McPuffin. Everything's a muck here, I've noticed.
So, we found out the name of our Picts friend is Macaroon.
Yeah.
So
So he talks all the time. Asterix, is that normal? Probably a side effect of the elixir. And he said, "Oh, by great Nessie, how much time has passed?" And who's Nessie? The guardian of our lock and totem animal, which is what we were talking about when we talked about the tattoo on his chest.
Yeah.
Which once you see it, you can't unsee it. She comes and goes as she likes, and she drives the salmon into the clan's nets. And Obelix there with his hand dangling off the side of the boat, which is never a good idea. This is why I think the artist who's done this one is definitely their specialty is animals.
Yeah, the seagulls. Actually, people like the thing is, obviously, we know what's front and center here, but the seagulls are quite good as well.
The seagulls are very well done. Even the Nessie is very well done.
A kind of otter.
A kind of otter. Yeah, kind of.
Big otter.
Yeah, a bit big.
And so we obviously we are talking about Scottish loch monsters now.
Yeah, she's after your god.
Yeah. Now, it's sort of say that this. Do you know there
of course,
are
Ring's laughing at a kind of otter.
Now, obviously, people obviously know the most famous. What this is recipe references is Loch Ness. Okay, this is called Nessie, but there are about 13 lochs in Scotland with monster myths.
Myths. I'll help with tourism in Scotland. Myths. Make sure you take your binoculars.
They they catch it. Loch Ness is the most famous.
Yeah.
But and I one or two of these other ones I've actually been. I actually have been out on a boat on Loch Ness. But Loch Acay, Loch Duick, Loch Linney, which I've actually been out sailing on. Loch Loki, which has got a monster called Lizzie. Loch Lomond is supposed to have the Lomond monster. Loch Marie, Loch Moa. I've been swimming in Loch Moa, which is really weird because it's really weird on the it's up near a place called Mallaig, but for some reason you wouldn't think it was the north of Scotland. You'd think it was like some Caribbean island there, but they got a monster called Morag there.
Morag.
So
basically, we are very lucky you came back alive and with all your limbs. This is what you're telling us right now.
I mean, this is the thing. Loch Ness gets all the attention, but there's at least 13 lochs in Scotland with should we say stories and sightings of this kind.
Yeah, so I mean, it is fun, but what else are they going to put on their tea towels? So
and they quite rightly same way Roswell, New Mexico exploits the whole alien thing for the tourist trade. You go anywhere around in the north, anywhere between Inverness and Fort Augustus, anywhere along that body of water, they plug the hell out of Nessie as a tourist attraction. Can you blame them? Not really. I actually should say, if you go to Loch Ness, hoping to see the blooming monster.
You need a few drinks in you first.
Well, first of all, if you're fixated on that, then you're missing something. You're missing just some beautiful scenery around it. Loch Ness is beautiful.
Yeah, I've seen pictures. It is gorgeous.
Absolutely, is an incredibly stunning, beautiful place in the world. As is most of the Scottish Highlands, to be honest. But Loch Ness is absolutely breathtaking, and if you go there fixated looking on monsters and miss the beauty of the place, you've really done yourself a disservice.
Yeah. I do like the way Nessie is characterized here. As it's sort of a playful puppy, dolphin-esque.
It's kind of Flipper the dolphin in
a little bit, yeah. Flipper the dolphin with a long neck going on here.
Yeah. She's taken the gourd with the elixir that helps him speak.
Yeah.
Good monster, don't drop. Go. It's like good monster, and she's going underground. Like, and Asterix is like, we got to go after her, and like, he's like, oh, don't worry, that's just her playing.
Yeah. He doesn't need the wait.
Yeah. Oh dear.
Of course, because comedic timing is comedic timing. And then this is a bit difficult to read in the corner there. But they're going to come on the corner. They're going to come ashore and try and avoid this other clan. And is it clan? Is it tribe?
I suppose if you're going to be Scottish, you're going to have to say clan, I suppose. It's more, again, more of a later term, I'd have thought. But that's what they're going for here, is the kind of clan, the Highland clans kind of thing is what they're going for in this book.
Yeah. And I mean, to be fair, historically, there would have been, tribal warfare in and around Scotland, just as there was in Gaul. Which is, again, another thing of, they were the Gauls in kilts.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously because obviously the clan system or whatever in Scotland, survived a bit longer, should we say?
Yeah.
It's very,
adapted and changed as well.
Yeah, and I actually definitely want to. Definitely, I think we should. I mean, I'll say there was a bit of a difference with the whole when the Act of Union happened. Generally, when it came to the whole thing with the Jacobite uprisings and so on that came later, generally speaking, the Highland tribes tended to support the Stuart family, and the Lowland tribes, the Lowland clans tended to be more, sympathetic to the British government that's established. Because there's a definite big myth about, like the final Jacobite War of the Battle of Culloden, that it was a war between England and Scotland. Most of the people that fought on the side of the British Army that day were Scots.
Yeah,
and that needs to be, said.
Yeah, the thing is, as with anything in history, it's always going to be far more nuanced than your entry-level textbook told you.
Yeah.
History is one of the few subjects, I think, where we teach not falsehoods, but we teach a very watered-down version. And the advanced version of history is the same story, but with more nuance.
Yeah.
Rather than just teaching it as it is from the start.
I mean, yeah, and it is. I mean, it is way more nuanced than that. I mean, it's still obviously it's a bit of a sore point, Culloden, also because of some of the actions of the Duke of Cumberland after the battle. But I think that's going down a whole nother rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So it is a bit. It's one of those things. Sometimes you have to be careful when talking about some of these, like some of the history of this, because you want to be sort of intellectually honest about it, but at the same time, it's something that can rile up emotions quite strongly, like.
Yeah, and I do think it is.
Hence why I'd never talk about the Battle of the Boyne with anyone in Ireland, for example.
Yeah, no, let's not. It is one of those things, especially when battles and wars have been so tightly bound to national identity and become part of almost a national mythos, it becomes very, very difficult to discuss it with any sort of nuance with anyone who's been raised into that mythos. That's not necessarily the fault of the person who's been raised that way, nor the people who raised them. It's not the fault of historians either. And it's just one of those things where you have to tread carefully. And there is a fine line between academic honesty and academic integrity.
Yeah.
And respecting the culture and the impact that the myth has had on the culture. Because a lot of times,
and to be honest,
stories get mythologized, and the importance of the myth is almost is sometimes more important than the actual history.
Yeah.
You know, you can talk about just to give a totally different example that's nothing to do with any of this. Most, you know, you see, Rings just said there, the South in the American Civil War.
Yeah.
The myth has become more important culturally in America than the facts. The facts are the South lost, deal with it. But the culture that's grown up around the Confederacy, its symbolism, what they've been told it means, to the point that textbooks in that area are printed with fallacies and incorrect things in them.
Well,
in order to propagate this myth is more important culturally in America than the fact that the South
I
lost.
will just say that I was at school presented with a very heavily sanitized picture of the British Empire.
Yeah, weren't we all?
You know, and but now, you know, generally it's one of those things. Now, you can go sometimes when you find out this like, things aren't the way you are. I will say this: sometimes you can almost go too far the other way when you find out. Sometimes the real history is somewhere in between. It's not. More often than it's not one absolute extreme or the other. You know, so. You know,
listen, this is what we're discussing here is an entire branch of historical study called historiography. And it's about how people with different political ideas, different aims, different goals, different perceptions present the same history. Like, you can take 4 different people and show them a historical event, and they will tell you 4 different stories about why that happened, where it happened, who it happened to, and why those people mattered.
Yeah.
And that's all historiography is in a very basic term. And it's, again, like you said, the Battle of the Boyne. If you ask an Irish person, you ask an English person, you're going to get 2 different answers. You ask, when you talk about, even in modern day, you ask someone from Yorkshire, and you ask someone from Cornwall, and you ask someone from Kent, and then you ask someone from London something about something that's happened in politics, and you're going to get 4 different answers. Yeah. Because our cultural values are more localized than we are in England. And a lot of that's why you always have to interrogate your historical sources. And make sure you know where your historical sources are coming from. It's so important, because if you don't know where they're coming from, you don't know what they're getting at.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what they're getting at, you're going to take it uncritically. So it's very important.
I've had this, and I've had this with like I've had this, for example. I had a guy who's an amateur historian on my channel a couple of months ago called Tim O'Neill. Now he's a bit of a lightning rod in the atheist community. I'll say that much. I don't always agree with his take on stuff. I don't always agree necessarily with the way he responds to people sometimes, but for the most part, his history is pretty damn good. And it does seem but I'm just saying this because I know a lot of the people who watch this are from the sort of atheist community who tend to watch me. You know, like I now, for example, I have no dog in a Jesus mythicism fight whatsoever. I really don't. But I also think it's something we got to be careful with, that a lot of people within our community might start having a little bit of a bias towards Jesus mythicism that may not be based on historical evidence, but our own biases.
Yeah, it's preconceived notions, isn't it?
You know, now again, I don't feel I have a dog in that fight whatsoever. I really don't. But because it's like oh, it's a rod, you know, it's a rod we can beat the Christians with. A lot of times, I think we got a predisposed bias towards that may not necessarily come from any skeptical analysis of history. Would be my little warning to people, or if we to say so.
Yeah, I would say just anything you hear, just question it. Question it. Don't just question the fact. Question who's telling you.
We've taken.
It does matter.
I would say we've taken a massive tangent, but I think it was an important one actually because of what we ended up talking about. Because you know, obviously, I have no training as a historian. Noodle has got some. Noodle, you know, is a historian. I'm not. But I think it is important to you know, have that conversation, because it's a little bit about what we try and do, about how to look at history. So I desperately need to take some painkillers, so
I'll carry on with the story a bit while you do that.
2 minutes, okay.
So they've landed on the bank, and they've been spotted by these fellas in red and black, and Macabre and Machinations, who recognise Macaroon. We get a few nods to Celtic goddesses and gods of various things. Not my area. I have no idea if this is accurate. But we have, you know, took the last cable to leave for the waters of hell. By Buzz, this will raise all hell. So if the puns are there, they work. I don't know. So, and then he climbs off his boat and begins to shout, sing, and it's a rallying cry. And again, this is something that Asterix and Obelix can appreciate. The famous Highland cattle with the long hair gets a nice little cameo here. And Obelix pointing out the road signs. Asterix finding that they're quite useful. I do like this one. This is a nice little joke for the Americans in the audience here. I'm sure will identify with this one. This is what we call a roundabout. It leads any pursuers astray. Roundabouts are not that confusing, folks. They're really not, okay? Like, so please just figure them out. But yeah, you can see what the joke is there, and it's a nice one. I do like it. So I just sort of comment on that. And then we have, since when did the dead come back to life? Well, it's 50 BC, so, you know, we were talking about Jesus mythicism a couple of minutes ago, but not quite yet. And obviously they think it's a superstition. And what will the Romans think? You know, they're bang up to date with the very latest in the ancient world. Describing Asterix novels quite accurately. and commenting on the fact that stripes would have to be, must be from another world because they're so horrible. I do like their dogs here, just because dogs. And the bear skin. I don't think the bear was particularly pleased to be turned into a rug. But he's going to send out his people to go find out what's gone on here. And then we've arrived in Macron's village, and immediately the similarities to the Gaulish village are obvious. The landscape's very similar, the architecture is very similar. And I think, again, that's deliberate. It's cousins, they're very similar cultures is what this is getting at. Robert X, no, I never drove in Paris. Yes, roundabouts can be confusing in Paris. But, if everyone's going round them the right way and taking the right exits, generally they're not that confusing. Try double roundabouts. Double roundabouts, I'll agree with you on. I want to wait here for Jeff because this is kind of the big introduction to the Picts and their culture. And so Obelix is introducing himself with their rallying cry. And this nice little log dropping between all of them, making them all jump. But Macron explains immediately, this is tossing the caber. And Obelix wants to play, naturally. I'm sure Scummer knows far more about tossing the caber than I do. So when he comes back, we'll give him a moment to catch us up on that, because the only thing I know is vague memories of seeing it on the news every so often that they do this as part of the Highland Games. Not my area at all. But Obelix there accidentally throwing it straight at one of the locals, who does not appear to be particularly enamoured until he sees Macron, who mistakes the man for his little brother, which is a very sort of typical trope of you've been frozen in time. It's a bit Captain America going on. But then lampshaded immediately and turned around. That's your great uncle McLaren, and here's McMinnie. For anyone who's not aware, McLaren and Minnie are both quite famous names for cars. So, and then we see the little brother, who quite sweet. And we do notice again here, I want to point out how easily Obelix fits in with these characters aesthetically. And again, reinforcing that the Gauls and the Picts are very similar culturally. Their druid even foretold Macron's return, which definitely sounds like something you'd hear in the Gaulish village. And Obelix's rallying cry works as well, because I'm going to say that's a rooster, but it looks a bit ruffled, responds. And now we have the Macron meeting all the village of McMama, Macrocosm, Macadamia, Catalpa, Arnica, Macrobotics, the Druid, Macrobotics, the Druid, Macrobiotics even. Sorry, this font, my dyslexia really doesn't like this font writing, I apologise. And they're all happy to see him. It's, again, I can't emphasise enough how similar they are to the Gaulish villagers.
Okay,
It
I
really
am
feels
back.
like
Where are we at now? We're at the.
We're in the village. I'm going to give you a few seconds, a
Okay,
few
I'm on the
minutes
screen there.
We need
All
to
right.
discuss Camber.
Right. First of
because
all, I
you
want
missed
to
that.
respond to I want to respond first of all to Robert X. Sod Paris, try the Basingstoke Ring Road if you don't like roundabouts. That's
I don't mind roundabouts. They're not that hard.
There's a lot of them.
But
like tossing the caber. Now, obviously, this is obviously from the Highland Games. Now, there's a little bit of the caber is, as people know, it's a big massive like wooden like usually made from larch. It's usually about between 16 and 20 feet, weighs between 90 to 150 pounds. So it's not like massively mass. I mean, it is heavy. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like super heavy. But it's now a lot of people think the objective is to throw it the furthest. It's not. That's the idea of this game is to toss the caber so it turns over from end to end, falling away. So the idea is it's more about the technique of how you throw it rather than how far it's thrown or anything. It's really the ideal thing is that it should turn like the total 180 degrees, land in a 12 o'clock position from the thrower. So it's more about how accurately it's thrown rather than distances. It's not a one of those things where you throw it. It's not like the javelin or the discus or something where it's about who throws it the furthest. So that is one of the events in the Highlands Games, the traditional Scottish Highland Games, which is the caber is probably the most famous. But you got there is stone putt, which is very similar to the shot put, hammer throw, weight throwing. Throwing a weight over a bar, so it's almost a combination of like the shot put and the high jump in a way. There's something called a sheaf toss with a bundle of straw. There's a couple other events, I forget what they're called, but it's a sort of traditional sort of like I suppose you could call it a traditional sort of sporting event of the Highlands. So
Macron's now going to introduce them to his family and his family tree, which is the Asterix sums up as many a mackle makes a muckle. And McMama, now everyone come have a nice hot meal, which Obelix approves. So happy, in fact, he wants to toss it a caber, which has predictable results. Good results, but predictable nonetheless. These two guys who are following them end up shipwrecked. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Romans are making progress.
And I will say, obviously, I think we've touched on this before, but it is a myth that the Romans never went into Scotland. That's a myth as well. In fact, there is about 60 or 70 miles north of Hadrian's Wall, somewhere in the sort of south of Scotland. There is the Antonine Wall, which was built after Hadrian's Wall, but not much of that left because the Antonine Wall was more like more of an earth and wood kind of palisade rather than the great big stonework of Hadrian's Wall. But, I mean, there are Roman villas in Scotland.
Now, whether an entire legion tried to sneak into Scotland, I don't know, is the honest answer to that. But it makes for a good story, so let's
Why am I thinking Eagle of the Ninth here? Sorry. Yeah.
Don't get me started on the just.
Yeah.
That so, you saw the way my expression turned when you said that.
You know, like I said about Braveheart earlier, what that is to me, like Eagle of the Ninth is like that's just to Noodle what Braveheart is to me.
Eagle of the Ninth is a great story, but it is a story. It's about as realistic as like Puff the Magic Dragon. No. It just has a few historical trappings on there. Please don't take it as fact. There are actually academic circles who, for some reason, feel it necessary to debate whether the Eagle of the Ninth plot and what happened to the Ninth Legion and all the rest of it, like we don't know. We know exactly what happened to the Ninth. There is no myth. There is no question. We know exactly what happened. And it doesn't take a lot of research to figure it out. So please, great story, suspend your disbelief, enjoy, have fun. But please don't.
It's not real history.
Yeah. And the thing is, it takes up valuable time for actual historians who have to debunk this nonsense. They weren't massacred, Bill.
No. That was
they weren't.
No, not at all.
I won't get into it because I've been into it on streams before.
Let's just
suffice to say they were just victims of Roman administration.
Can I just say this as a teaser? Okay, for something, Noodle.
No, leave it, Jeff. Leave it, because if we get into it,
we'll just say it might be something we might talk about at length in the future on a stream, but not today. So that's all I can say.
So off we go. Ultra secret mission in Pictish territory. Yeah, so secret. They're all there in full uniform and armor. And let me tell you something. Roman soldiers on the march make a lot of noise. They're not quiet. So the idea of this being ultra secret is a nice little in-joke there. This, to me, this whole thing with speak up at the back, it's got very much... and the Greeks shall inherit the earth vibes. It's obvious. It's a little bit of a nod to Life of Brian, I think. Speak up, we can't hear you here at the back. And misheard homophones and similar sounds. Password is courage and bravery, to which
porridge and gravy.
Sounds a bit of all right. And then we're at the family party for the return for macaroonies in full swing. You
got the woman there, McMama.
Yep, you got salmon parcels, which Obelix really enjoys. Mackerel with macaroni. The druid is speaking. The druid appears to very much enjoy his malted water of life.
Yeah, I've got some malted water of life right here, by the way.
Malted water of life.
Yep.
For those who aren't aware, whiskey. He's talking about whiskey. So there we go. So this to me, this little comment here, we drink it with plenty of added water, but the Maccabees drink it immoderately. This is kind of a common bit of propaganda that certain groups use against others, that they drink immoderately. The Romans famously actually used it against the Gauls. The Romans famously claimed that the Gauls drank their wine concentrated and undiluted, and therefore couldn't handle the drink and got drunk, or they drank it too strong and got drunk, which in Roman society, to be drunk, especially in public, was went against a lot of Roman cultural norms and values, it definitely would give your dignitas a hit, and possibly your virtue as well. Which these concepts were kind of, if you think of the words that they have created in modern language, dignity, virtue, it's the whole honour and cultural. It's a bit like getting drunk in a medieval court. It just, you wouldn't. Or, getting drunk at work, kind of, it would have that sort of stigma attached to it. So I can see where the joke's going. I think to tell that joke with him speaking to a Gaul's a bit, but yeah. Yeah, as Bill's put it there, it would be a great faux pas to get pissed anywhere like that. Yeah. So we've now got music playing.
The band, you're playing Rockabye Baby.
Yeah, which, a lock and roll tune.
Yeah, which I'll say there's some debate over where that nursery rhyme came from, but one persistent theory is that in the events immediately preceding what was known in England as the Glorious Revolution, the baby is supposed to be the son in the question. Is supposed to be the son of James VII of Scotland and second of England, and it's widely believed to be someone else's child smuggled into a birthing room with a Roman Catholic heir for James. It's got a little bit of Scottish ancestry, possibly with the House of Stuart. However, there's some debate about the origin of that particular nursery rhyme. So
there's always debate about the origin of nursery rhymes. That they are, how we were talking about how culture sometimes, and the culture something exists in, is more important than its origin. Nursery rhymes are
good example.
Sometimes what we believe about the origin of nursery rhymes is more important than the actual origin. The Ring a Roses story.
Yeah. Georgie Porgy about the Prince Regent as well, and
it's sometimes what we believe matters more than wherever it came from. Again, as Bill's just put it there, found the word for me, oral tradition. Oral tradition matters so much to people on a personal level, far more than any objective statement of fact we can make from material evidence or anything like that. Because oral tradition is what's been passed through their family, and it has an emotional attachment.
Okay.
So again, someone tells you something and they say, "Oh, I heard this from my grandparents." Yes, respect where it comes from and why it matters to them, but take it with a pinch of salt. Because sometimes we don't want to question our elders as kids. And people misremember things, and there's all kinds of issues around oral tradition and how it can, how stories can change and shift over time, and meanings can be lost and altered and develop, and new meanings can be added and things like that. So it's a very complex area of historical study, but it is, it is rich for research as well. I'm not dismissing it as a research source at all. I'm just saying, be careful. Make sure you know what you're doing before you start going down that rabbit hole.
I think we're going to have to get back to the plot of this, because I just looked at the time actually and realised we've got quite a bit to go through. And
so Obelix is not keen on the idea of music at dinner. McCool's not too pleased, and Obelix is Asterix has assumed Obelix has had one too many to drink. And Macaroon's now going off to see his fiancée. And I will say the purple prose, the way he talks about her is, he goes on a bit. He's quite clearly smitten. And he finds out that she's disappeared because we're only on page 30 and therefore we need more plot.
Yeah.
So, and then they've got this concept where he's got to go to be proclaimed king of the Picts in a certain area. And so he has to now go find his fiancée first. And this Maccabeus is already introducing himself as future king of the Picts.
Now,
this is why I was saying about the way he's drawn. You could possibly read something into that given his name.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go into it any further. I'm just going to say if you see that, we are at this point willing to give the artist the benefit of the doubt because it's their first book. If it continues, you'll find we don't.
Yes. Again, once again, just quickly, we said it 100 times before, but if you never watched one of our streams before,
what you think
this is not the salute you think it is.
Yeah.
So.
And we sincerely hope you would realise that, particularly given what we said about Maccabees sounding vaguely Hebrew, that you would understand that that is not the salute you think it is. So they were supposed to give a password, and he calls them up to... they have to fraternize with their allies.
Yeah. All right. So it's like Asterix, is that your natural color? They're not really talking, the Scots here.
Yeah, it's a bit awkward.
Meanwhile, Obelix is like, maybe we should toss some cavers here, and so it won't work against their village. It's a strong, and the cliff is as full as holes as Helvetian cheese, which Helvetian means Swiss. So
yeah. So nice little in joke there. Asterix coming up with a plan as usual.
Yeah. I was going to say, then he mentions. Hold on, actually, just make sure I got this there. So they're going to, will speak up front and confuse the guy, and now he said about let's just buy buck. Now we've seen a few of these. I think you've said something when we were out there. I don't think some of these are not actual.
Yeah, some of them are definitely not
at all. It's just done for laughs, for giggles.
Yeah, I think I've heard of reference of a goddess or a deity by the name of Hel somewhere, but I couldn't tell you anything about it. So
Norse, I think.
Yeah, it sounds vaguely Norse rather than Celtic. Or not Celtic. What's the word I'm looking for? I'm just going to say Scottish. You know what I mean. But yeah, that's the only one that rung any bells to me. And then after that, it's quite obviously they're just puns. But I didn't want to assume because you never know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think also just quick thing on that in this book, I think they mentioned Hela as a sea goddess. The Norse goddess, the Norse god Hel is not a sea goddess. I think it's Ran. I think it's a sea goddess in Norse mythology. It's been a while. I'm not as up on it as I used to be. So
yeah, no, I think they said Hel was the underworld goddess.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk about Roman syncretism with that would probably be closest to Ceres, maybe. If you want to go Greek, possibly Hecate. You could argue some relevance to Persephone as well. Depending on that. You might even want to try and link it to Demeter. Syncretism is hard. It's not as clean cut as we would like it to be.
So we've got Asterix and Obelix now. They're going to sneaking out on the water here.
Yeah. With the kid.
And the kid and Nessie picks up. So you got the gourds like fetches things. I love that Dogmatics fetches things too. I like that. Yeah. It's like Obelix is so unimpressed with this like massive sea monster here, and it's
Yeah. So that's a set of bagpipes.
Yeah.
And then no, those are brooms, and that's a cauldron. And
Dogmatics, Dogmatics is better at this. Yeah.
There's a great little joke here because there's a saying. I don't know if it translates across borders and things, but there's a saying that you can train. You can. I tell you once. I tell you twice. I don't tell you a third time because in that time I could have trained a dog. Which my dad, as the famous apprentice killer in his misspent youth, training engineers and electricians, used to tell them. And I grew up with that, so that immediately gave me a chuckle when I looked at this, because quite obviously, like, someone's got something similar going on there.
Sorry, I missed this one from Robert X earlier. Yes, probably, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, honestly, hopes I haven't read enough Tacitus to know. There's quite a few ocean, sea, underworld deities in Roman and Greek mythos. I wouldn't want to draw a direct parallel between any one and especially a deity that I know very little of. I'd have to do some more research into that to say anything with any sort of confidence.
I like the fact so they actually ends up diving down and they go to Nessie's cave, where she's got an awful lot of stuff stored down there.
Yeah. And so off they go hunting, and it's a bit it's a bit Little Mermaid, this. It feels a bit sort of you want thingamabobs, I've got 20,
Yeah. Yeah, very much so.
Guess how old I am.
Yeah, I was a bit old. I'm a bit older, so I was not exactly queuing up to see The Little Mermaid when I was a teenager.
Yeah, I wasn't a teenager, so I was a bit young for that. So I was right in the age group for it, at least for the re-release. So they're on. So we've got the Romans and one of the those on sentry duty. I do like this comment. Logistical support my eye. Verba volant, as they say. Now, verba volant is it's a comment, and I looked it up earlier, but I need to recheck because my memory is atrocious. Is a partial thing, but it's a Latin proverb of spoken words fly away, written words remain, is the translation. So basically, talk is cheap, is what that's how I'd translate that into idiomatic English. Going on there. So, and then we have, as usual, there's always one of the Romans makes reference to something that's going off back in the village, and we have he should have gone into a cushy job like his cousin, limited numbers, who does the census. But he's about to find out exactly what poor limited numbers is going through, because sure enough, fully automatics is banging the guy on the head, poor bloke, and guess who's about to appear to meet these sentries? Who Asterix and Obelix once again appearing right on time, comedic timing, very nice. The village of madmen with that aggressive dwarf and the fat fool, what were their names again? And then Asterix answers. So that's quite fun.
Yeah.
Nice little fight scene. Romans in Caledonia, that's strange. Maybe they came along the tunnels. I'll let you explain that one, Jeff.
I missed the joke actually. So I actually missed the joke.
Romans coming along the tunnel.
Okay.
Scotland. The tunnel wasn't finished until the late 1900s.
Yeah.
I think. Someone check that for me, please. I know it was. Yeah, I think there's a bit of a reference to possibly the Channel Tunnel on there going on.
Yeah, the 1990s that would have been finished. Yeah. I didn't read that as a Channel Tunnel joke personally, but
yeah. And then again, the home is remarkable. It's very central, and his spies are back.
Yeah.
And they're saying the future queen doesn't want to go above ground. She hates the idea of marriage. This immediately, like previous to this character was a bit of a cartoon villain. But these two panels immediately gave me a visceral, someone killed this dude. This, my sweet swallow, I love it when she pretends to resist me. And the magnanimous Maccabees will always leave the door open. It's so... it's just
cringe.
Gross. It's gross. It's really gross. If you're going to make a villain, that's how you make a villain. So I'm not going to criticize the writers, but wow. That's I mean, if you want us to dislike
him, if they wanted us to dislike him, they've done a good job.
I don't think we're supposed to like this dude.
But they found her. Yeah, they found her. Camilla. Sorry, I'm not reading this too good.
Camomilla, I make that.
Yeah.
And then they explain she hugs Obelix, who immediately blushes because, of course, he does. And Asterix tying up the guards. And obviously, Asterix now trying to find a way out, and Obelix too busy flirting with the princess. Is what this essentially boils down to.
Yeah, explaining this, and then the two of them end up arguing like they do at times. You know, like Asterix is trying to keep his mind on what's going on here, and he's like, "I was talking to the future queen, Mr. Asterix, and I advise you to change your tone,
Mr. Obelix."
So they're off on it. They're off arguing with one another, going on. Of course, the princess here. There's a galley going down. It's a
gallery going down here.
Down here, yeah.
And again, with the animals, I do like the bats. They are very well drawn. Again, and for once, Asterix and Obelix are not friends immediately after that, which is awkward.
Yeah, because they normally have great big arguments and then hug it out almost immediately afterwards. You know.
So here's the plan that McVicar, the priest, will make the proclamation. If some of the chieftains don't go along with it, there will be a signal and the Romans will intervene. Rapidity, efficiency, sobriety by Jupiter. Cheers. Which is just a nice bit of irony that I like. Also, I think a reference to the Olympics, but don't quote me on that. Possibly to the French liberty fraternity. So,
and you see the you see the guy here. This, but never fear, Romans. Maccabeus Rex will not be ungrateful. After sweeping through Britain, he will invite Caesar to march on Gaul, and it's like with him, and then the Romans like, what?
Yeah,
it's like
So Maccabee seems to think all is up for grabs, and it is.
Excuse me. Actually, we own, obviously, with the exception of the one little village in our story here.
Yeah.
The Romans have Gaul in the bag already. It's like, hold on. So you can't. So you can't sort of bargain with something you don't have.
Yeah. So they'll settle those little details later. More whiskey. Because that's how you settle a difference of perception in when you're negotiating.
Yeah.
Sorry, I did not sleep well last night, which is why I keep losing my words. I apologize. And they're still looking out for Asterix and Obelix to come back, hopefully with the princess. And everyone's starting to worry now because it's getting dark and late. And by morning, the island in the loch is seething with excitement before the ceremony to acclaim the new king.
Causing some confusion amongst the local inhabitants and Nessie sticking her head.
Bit confused. I will say from what I gather, and this is a very loose, this is me just gathering and making connections and things. I feel like they're meeting on this rock to proclaim a new king is very much like the scene in, which Marvel movie was it? Black Panther.
All right,
to proclaim a new king, but without the fighting. It's kind of that sort of setup of everyone's got to meet up and agree who's going to take over.
Well, obviously, as well, you remember obviously that all the Scottish kings were crowned on a stone, weren't they? Which is now, I think, underneath the. I think it's now in. I'm trying to remember where it is now. The Stone of Scone, where it actually is now, whether it's in Edinburgh Castle still, but it's British monarchs are still crowned on it to this day. It's sort of under the throne, but there was a place called I believe there actually was a place called Scone where the Scottish kings were traditionally crowned.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm just comparing it to something else of sort of cultural relevance, so people get an idea of what it's meant to look like.
It's one of those things that it was. The Stone of Scone was one of those things that was taken by Edward I as a prize of war and removed to Westminster Abbey, where it was fitted into like the throne there. And I do believe it's back in Edinburgh Castle now, I think. But
we'll I'm sure we can find out at a later date. All the Picts are arriving. We have Picts of the Plains, Woodland Picts, Paunchy Picts, Spotted Picts, Laughing Picts, Yellow Water Picts. You could call them a Pict bunch, which is a nice. I think we've even got one that's a little bit hippie there going on.
You got one who's you got one here who's a bit of who's like the Red Cross and he's the neutral one.
Swiss Pict.
Yeah.
So Maccabee and his supporters arrive. Mingling and buying shots of malted water to win votes. This is a historical thing. Until very, very recently, it was perfectly legal for those running in elections to buy drinks, particularly in America, in taverns for people for their votes. Damn it, Ring. So yeah, it's one of those things. It's just a form of bribery. But it is historically a known thing. And then we have everyone, the independents stand up and speak. And so apparently the assembly chieftain has the right of veto, and he vetoes by, well, a bonk to the head. I feel like this is an excellent form of government and we should try it. What's the worst that could happen?
I could get behind knocking both Boris and Keir Starmer on the head with a caber.
Definitely, yes. So here we go. Various candidates getting a bonk on the head. And now Maccabee speaks up, starts talking, claiming that he's, close to the dear departed previous king. This has all got very. this is how dictatorships start. They claimed they were close to the previous beloved member of royalty.
Well, of course, there is a. I mean, I'm not going to get too much into it, but obviously, there's a little bit of a historical basis of this as well, with the Balials and the Bruces, and it obviously led to a lot of the events, should we say, depicted in stuff like Braveheart, should we say, that era, the William Locke Wallace era sort of thing, of when they made the mistake of inviting Edward I to settle the dispute over who should rule them, and unfortunately Edward took that as okay, I'm settling this dispute, I'm kind of, I'll crown a king, but I'm the real boss kind of thing.
Yeah. Obviously, of course, as Bill's just put in the chat, also they do like to claim heritage from a deity. Caesar did it, Augustus did it. Augustus did it via Caesar, to be fair. It's a common trope.
That could be an interesting debate topic, actually. Campbell's soup versus McDonald's burgers.
What debate? Campbell's soup?
Yeah, exactly.
Campbell's soup is actually got enough food in it that it would go off if you left it out in open air. Therefore, Campbell's soup. But yeah, right. Anyway, on we go, because we're starting to run low on time now.
Yeah, we are. We're actually going to go over as it is.
Gets accused of being a sorcerer because his voice is misbehaving.
Yeah.
And then, right as we think Maccabee is possibly about to bring down Macroon's speech, guess who appears? And I do have to say, I love this panel.
I do as well.
Very well panel.
That's a really well drawn panel. I like it. I like that panel.
It's very nicely done. It's a bit sort of that Earth is flat, so just saying. But B, it's kind of got it's a bit of a call to, my brain's gone. Who do I mean? Carried the world on his shoulders, part of the Herculean trials.
Atlas.
Atlas, that's the one. Yep.
Atlas the Titan. Yeah, it's one of the Titans.
There's a bit of Atlas the Titan imagery going on there, I think, with Obelix. And before this happens, they get in at the nick of time, and him seeing his fiance gets him talking again, because true love will out. He accuses Maccabeus as a traitor. Maccabeus gives the signal.
In come the Romans.
One badge arrives.
Yeah, Obelix is looking forward to this. Romans,
waving them in. Everyone trying to figure out who's ally here.
Yeah. The white Picts are neutral, obviously. the red cross on them.
Picts are allies of the Maccabees, but in the name of the Paunchy Picts, I demand an explanation.
Yeah.
The spotted Picts are corrupt.
Then we get this picture, this weird picture here. I like it, but it's like
it's weird, isn't it?
It is showing how confusing this kind of all is here.
This is a very good depiction of any sort of civil war, though.
Yeah.
Obelix charges, Roman disembarkment, Picts wrestling with yellow water Pict, Asterix breaks through, Bard inspired by the battle, white Pict invoking neutrality, and vision of a new game by the Druid, and then just the lovers in the middle of it.
Yeah, very. And okay, we can't go into too much of a tangent here, but as Noodle said, very accurate depiction of a civil war. There very rarely is clear cut as one side against the other.
Yeah. So reinforcement, why isn't the other barge landing? Well, because Nessie's got them covered. Which is kind of cute, because it just looks like Nessie wants to play. So, and then the chieftain, or whatever his name was, wants to stop and unite against the Romans. Macduff is right. Unite down with the Romans. And in the meantime, we've got our little love story coming to a conclusion here.
Yeah.
If she doesn't like dragons, they can change it for the ring. The ex-future king would like a word with you. It took me a second to get my head around that. And now he wants to compromise, which, again, typical. And so Asterix gives her a sip of magic potion, which I love. I adore this. I think it's brilliant. And she just gives him one good... And I really love that it's her who did this after the way he treated her and the things he said.
Yeah, this is poetic justice, isn't it? Its finest here.
Absolutely perfect poetic justice.
And you see the two of them, I love the fact that they're floating down the river on a couple of cavers.
Yeah, in exactly the same way that they did to him. So they're probably going to land in a few books' time in the Gaulish village as well.
It said, I love this, there's a little clip there with Julius Caesar. It said that the return of his centurion persuaded Caesar to abandon his plans to invade Caledonia, or that frees the project. Much later, his successor Hadrian had a wall, 118 kilometers long, built to separate Caledonia and so from the rest of the Roman Empire. So I knew they'd have to get Hadrian's wall in there.
Yeah, they have to put a wall in somewhere, didn't they? Yeah, they'd have to make reference to it somewhere.
Now, obviously, they proclaim Macaroon the king.
He speaks and gets them all singing the same tune, which is kind of
doesn't last long. It doesn't last long though. The seeds of dissent are already because they haven't I suggest simplifying the rules for power. And straight away, she said, we should pass it down to the eldest daughter of the king to make her queen. Why the daughter? And why not the daughter? May I help you?
Help.
And then you got all the rest of them saying, I'd choose the first nephew. Why not proportional voting? Why don't we choose successor by colour? Why don't we have democracy like the Greeks? So it's already the seeds of disunity are sown.
Just to point out as well, that's pretty much, I feel like, when was this released? Because doesn't this feel like the referendum debate a little bit? Do you remember when we had a referendum on different voting?
Yeah, I think
I'm wondering if it's a contemporary comment.
I think this is maybe a little before. Actually, it could be around about the time of the Scottish referendum.
There was the 2011 United Kingdom alternate vote referendum. And this came out in 2013. So I wonder if it's a nod to that.
But you got to remember as well that it wasn't in 2013, it was a year or two later, but Scotland had a referendum, didn't they, on independence of Britain?
That was 2014, So all the thing when this was coming out would have been in full swing.
Scotland was gearing up for that at the time. And then obviously the big one happened in 2016, Brexit.
Yeah, exactly. So we had quite a few referendums in go, but generally this is, when you try and hold a referendum, this is the kind of thing you get, because everyone's got an opinion. And Obelix just wants some more salmon parcels. So off they go, getting ready to head back to Gaul.
Now I love this next little joke for some reason. Nessie brings them the gourd, the elixir.
But brings them the gourd back. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Asterix pets Nessie, but don't really need it anymore, so he just plops it back into the lock.
Yeah.
And this is now Percy never retrieved it. It says, and if today certain descendants of the original Nessie are spotted going up and down again when they're in search of a lost gourd, Loch Ness.
Yeah.
I love that.
I love that little joke. That's a great little joke. I love it.
Yeah.
And so they arrive in triumph back to the village. Impedimenta still sewing.
Looks like she's sewing a spore in there for.
Yeah. They're back and they're telling the story everyone wants to hear. And getting everyone to try the malted water, but not too much. But don't go falling into it, or with skicks. And dogmatic little monsters returned.
Geriatrics is still in his Highlands dress.
Yeah. Pictomania left some traces, but Geriatrics got a tattoo. And after sliding in the winter, the Chiefs try and cross country shield riding, which to me looks a lot like an early skateboard of some depiction.
And I love the fact we end back up here and we got the poor little guy doing the census.
Yeah.
And
why do you keep moving about?
Yeah.
And just having a breakdown.
Basically, we'll have to count you all again, take a census of the village of Bab, but you keep moving. I'm sick of it. I don't care for it. And he's like, I love the fact that he's like,
there's a very simple way of counting goals.
Yeah.
And what is it? The banquet. Get them all there and count them from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I find this one a little bit weird. It's like they kind of almost got Cacophonix. I think he looks like he's tied up and gagged, but that he's still speaking here. I love the Picts. They also have respect for their bards, and Cacophonix is like, they do.
They do? Really?
And I love the Asterix. No, much bigger than an otter.
Yeah. And the whiskey is not bad, but not as good as barley beer. So, and that's a sweet little ending with the kids playing on a Nessie toy.
Yeah.
Dogmatic's got his bone and the Pictish map there.
And the Nessie log, as Nerdy pointed out. Yeah. Okay, send that. Good one. What do you think?
Again, all right. I think better the second time round. Although I am on my second drink, so take that with a pinch of salt. A nice little book, nice bit of fun, good bedtime story for kids, I think. Nothing too overly complex, nothing that you'd really need to really get into if you didn't want to. Like the whole thing about oral traditions and everything else, that was me going off on a tangent. I wouldn't expect anyone to sit down with their kids and have that conversation.
We went off on a couple of tangents today, to be fair, which is why we've kind of run over. But
but that's it's a nice story. I like it. It's got a it's back to form.
I do like back to form. That's my feeling of this, because I think we got to a little bit of a point whilst doing this where it was with some of the later Uderzo stories, it was actually getting a little bit of a chore to do these streams.
Definitely.
This was a lovely palate cleanser for that.
Yeah, it was very nice, just very pleasant, nothing too strenuous. It's just fun, you know. Some of the jokes fell a bit flat. Some of it was a bit, you know. I have to say, I do miss the Uderzo flex. It does a lot, but the animals more than make up for it. And whoever that artist is brilliant and has definitely put their own stamp on Asterix and Obelix without completely redesigning it, which is not an easy thing to do either.
Yeah.
I do like that we're seeing the dialing back of some of the more racist and sexist tropes. I hope that continues. All in all, a solid start, I think.
Okay.
A very good start for the new creators and writers.
I'll just say the names of the new two. The writing is done by a man called Jean-Yi Ferret, and it's illustrated by an artist called Didier Conrad.
Never heard of either of them, but good job, folks.
Good start. Good start, I think. Yeah, it was. I think. Oh, just quick question, Bill. You weren't here earlier, but yeah, they left Doggo behind today. Dogmatics was in this book, but they left him behind for the adventure. Yeah, like I said, they played it safe. They went to the traditional formula. You can't blame them for that. Like I said, I'm not going to put this one in like the top. I wouldn't even put this in the top 10 Asterix books of all time of anything. But it was a good one, a nice one, relatively inoffensive one.
Yeah, I think if Goscinny had if this had have come out in the Goscinny era, it would have been another run-of-the-mill story.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it stands up to the Goscinny era. And to me, the Goscinny era is the benchmark they should be aiming for. So I can't complain in that regard. I hope as they grow in confidence and they begin to own it a little bit more, that maybe they'll branch out and have a bit more fun with it and see how that goes. And as I said, I am hoping for a continuation of the minimization of the racism and sexism, etc.
Yeah.
There are some things in there that are always going to be in there because it's childish humor. There's always going to be fat jokes. There's always going to be, because that's what kids find funny, unfortunately. They grow out of it, we hope, most of the time. But if they can find a way to work around that as well, it would be very nice. But again, not a necessity, I wouldn't think, given the target audience. Now, I am going to say let's wrap up and head on over for Ring because we've already made Ring 15 minutes late.
I'm going to say there's the link there. It's in the chat. We will be wrapping this up now. Because we've already cut into Ring's time, we'll be heading over there shortly. Myself and Noodle will be there. And we're it's on Media Musings. I believe this week we're talking about representation of autism in media, which is probably might be a little bit more of a serious topic than what we've been doing, but
but hopefully we'll get some good insight. I think we've got Sam joining us as well this week, so we will head on over there probably in the next 5 or 10 minutes. We'll be live over there, so come and join us. And we will see you next week on my channel for the next Asterix book.
And by the way, sub to 1 Ring 42 if you were not already subbed.
Yeah, do make sure you are
trying to get Ring to 200. So okay. Anything to quickly plug before we go, Noodle?
Death Stranding, if I remember tomorrow and my head isn't exploding, on my channel, and this time next week on my channel, that's Use Your Noodle. We will be picking up with the next Asterix book, which I don't know what it is yet because I haven't checked, but yeah, we'll be there. Hopefully, fingers crossed and all that.
Cool. Okay, I don't really have much to plug because mainly other than go over to Rings in a few minutes. And obviously I'll be streaming with Noodle next week on Noodle's channel, where we'll be doing the next Asterix book in the series. So, which is called Asterix and the Missing Scroll.
Oh, sounds interesting. So we will head over that way and we will see you all soon. Taglines, Scummer?
I don't have taglines, as you know. Do yours.
All right. From us, take care, be good, and if you can't be good, remember, use your noodle.
See you later. See you guys later. Salute.